epidemiology within the veterinary school at UC Davis. In addition to that, she is a longtime director of the Center for Animal Disease Modeling and Surveillance, which is a recognized FAO reference center for veterinary epidemiology. She has more than 130 publications related to the development and the implementation of quantitative methods, anywhere from epidemiological modeling to risk assessment to geostatistics and network analysis, all in the vein of unraveling the complex epidemiological problems at the wild animal, domestic animal, and human interface. And she is currently leading the development, implementation, and validation of novel big data analytics and visualization tools and their integration into more operational and web-based platforms. And this is ultimately to enable a more timely support of animal health decisions. And today, Dr. Martinez Lopez's talk is entitled Precision Epidemiology to Better Prevent and Control Endemic and Emerging Diseases in Livestock. Thank you very much for joining us, and please take it away.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me well? Yes. Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the invitation. It's really a great pleasure to be here in person today. Actually, I have to say that because, you know, we all hate kind of the Zoom world for more than you know, anything else, I guess, after this COVID year. So really great to be here today. And I was going to start with a small poll to create a word cloud about your backgrounds and so on. But I feel that, you know, I met with many of you. Probably we can do that as we were running a little bit late today. But yeah, absolutely. This is really one of the projects that we're super excited working now with a huge number of professionals, bioinformatics, computer scientists, biologists, ecologists. We have a lot of people working in this area. And the main question is like, what is precision epidemiology? Probably you hear a lot about these terms lately, definitely after COVID. This is not COVID, by the way, by disclosure. I got sick, my toddler got something, you know, how these kids, and I just have it for 3 weeks already. So, but yeah, I'm trying to use a mask and still hopefully it's not contagious anymore after those weeks. Okay, so what's precision epidemiology? That's really the question. We talk a lot about precision medicine. Is this question about how these differ somehow with precision public health that has been used a lot after COVID. But what is specifically precision epidemiology? So I asked my friend ChatGPT, and one of the things that said was basically, again, I was hoping to do this in real time, but had to switch devices. But basically, this is what it answered basically last night. Precision epidemiology refers to the use of precise and personalized approaches in the field of epidemiology with the goal of improving the prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of diseases at the individual level. Well, probably not super accurate in this first part, but then talks about traditionally epidemiological studies have focused on identifying risk factors for disease in large populations. However, with recent advances in technology and data science, precision epidemiology takes advantages of all these new tools to gather more detailed information about individual patients, such as their genetic makeup, livestock habits, and environmental exposures, to better understand their disease risk and tailor specific interventions to these specific needs. So really, you know, we're starting to get a little bit better here. Then the last part talks about, well, this precision epidemiology may involve the use of big data analytics, including, you know, machine learning and other advanced techniques to analyze large data sets, as well as the integration of clinical data, biological samples, and environmental data. By applying a more precise and individualized approach to epidemiology, this precision medicine aims to provide more targeted and effective interventions to disease prevention and treatment. So again, it's good. I mean, it's not amazing, but if you read some of the papers, there's this paper that Roberts et al. Published. They talk a lot about precision epidemiology, linking, you know, the use of genomics in semi-real time to better understand risk factors and how this is transmitted in a population. They also distinguish that from precision medicine and precision public health, which, you know, in a short sentence could be defined as the right care to the right individual at the right time and the right intervention to the right population at the right time. So it's very similar, but again, versus, you know, individual versus population level. And public health also talks more a little bit, you know, about health equity and economics. It's including that more than precision epidemiology part. Now, if I ask ChatGPT about what's the precision epidemiology in livestock, it really provides a similar response, but more tailored to, you know, animal populations. In this case, we are talking about herds in, food safety and livestock production is really more about production, health economics in the context of food production rather than just, individual animals. So again, it gets pretty good, but again, we can refine this a little better. It's not just about, using all these big data that we're generating or using the, all the omics to inform decisions at the population level. It's a little bit farther than that. It's also providing the data to those who need to know at the right time. And that's one part that is not talking here. Okay, so why the livestock industry needs this? Well, livestock industry, again, we may be more in agreement or not about this. It could be political, okay. But they definitely strive, particularly, very progressive industries like the swine industry, poultry industry, integrated industries, and also, of course, all other industries, cattle and so on. They really strive to get more sustainable. They're working hard to get that. Also, they really work towards One Health. It seems, probably sometimes we talk about, the conspiracy theories, these large corporations, but they actually try to do the right thing for animals, for people, and for the environment. They're really investing a lot of money for that. They also want to have food security, of course. I mean, they really, all their business is really about that. And, they also raise their families and their kids, and they really want to have food safety and food security into the check. Particularly now that, as you know, in 20 years, we're gonna have to double the production of animals to meet, the meat increase to feed the world. Now, the challenges, though, are many, and we are all aware that, while everybody was getting worried about COVID, in the veterinary world, we had many other pandemics going on. One of them is African swine fever, which is killing half of the population of pigs in the world. And the other is avian influenza, that may be the next human pandemic. So again, foreign animal diseases is definitely a big thing, and everybody's really aware and concerned about that. We also are very concerned about endemic agents that we still have a lot of problems with. PRRS, like reproductive respiratory syndrome, swine influenza, I mean, just to say some. In dairy industry, we have a lot of issues also with BVD. I mean, many endemic agents. And of course, the last thing is the problem that we are having every day more. We talked in the seminar before this about antimicrobial resistance and how we can improve antimicrobial stewardship. So just some examples. I think that this heading of the economist was very illustrative. When the disease got in China, more than half of the population of pigs in the world in China, they kill billions of animals just for African swine fever. And so it was really bad, and it's a matter of time. Question is not gonna get into the US just now, it's when. So we will get it probably, and we're getting ready for it. Again, African swine fever is kind of the Ebola of pigs, just to give you an idea. We don't have vaccine, we don't have effective treatment. It kills a lot of pigs, even with the chronic forms that are appearing. So it really is a hemorrhagic issue that it's really problematic. Of course, we have other issues with PRRS. For example, one of the main causes of antimicrobial use in farms. So PRRS is a virus that causes a lot of respiratory problems, also abortions and so on, is really, together with swine influenza, leading to the use of antimicrobials because of secondary infections. And then, of course, antimicrobial resistance that we already discussed a little bit about it. So we definitely need to move forward in a different direction than the one that we had been using in the past, because it's, we need to be faster and able to control these problems faster and more effectively. So farmers of the future will definitely be more technologically advanced, let's say. With crops, we already saw the revolution, but in the livestock industry, the adoption is not as general, but we will get there. Drones, robots, sensors, wearables in general, will definitely get there. We have farms now in Europe and other places here in Kentucky, for example, that cows have 5 different wearable devices, just to check how their, the rumen is working, how many they move, I mean, many things. So this is gonna be the future, and we'll have a farmer probably is more sitting down in front of a computer with dashboards and making decisions about, what's going on depending on data. that is being generated with all these, robots. We have the farms that, the animals that are basically, again, sending real-time information, as well as control environments that, are going to tell us the temperature and all the different climatic factors at the farm level. Now, this is awesome, but it's a lot of data being generated. As you know, in the last, probably 10 years, we generated 90% of all the data that we have generated in the history of humankind. So it's getting worse and worse, I would say, and how we're going to handle all this, right? How we're going to use this data. And well, we will have to come up with ways to integrate this information, which is very diverse and coming from different sources in a different way. Not just farming in terms of animal demographics, production management, biosecurity, but also environmental factors, also feed and all the, bioprocess. Crop farming, many farms have integrated pastures, and also they produce crops as well. So there's a lot of information is going to be gathered. So this is exciting, again, for those that are data excited, but it's also very challenging. We're going to produce all these massive amount of information that, again, we need to understand how we're going to start using it. It's not, in the past, epidemiologists were, okay, let's select a sample and then try to make inferences, statistical inferences about the population. Well, now we're going to probably move to population level information, even census data. It's going to cover every single individual and maybe with massive amounts of information, how we're going to handle that. Now, some of the main challenges is that this data is already being collected, but it's not always integrated together or used for precision medicine, right? So we do have a lot of production data, we do have a lot of diagnostics, we do have a lot of movement data, but that's in different silos, is not integrated together. We also have a lot of challenges in terms of, the data availability is not always there for many reasons. People don't want to share the information. We all learn about that, in COVID times. So the privacy, confidentiality is a big thing. In the US, animals and all the information about that is private property. So it doesn't really, they don't want to sometimes share it with the government or, with other like researchers, things like that. So we need to understand that and see how we can leverage a different conversation. And the same with effective usage of that data. So even if we have access, how we use it and how we convince farmers that are collecting that data not to remove the data, because it's funny, some of them have all these devices and they collect the data and then they check it like roughly. And if they don't see anything weird, they just remove it to save money from the cloud storage and then just, get data from the next week and so on. So you basically lose kind of the time series analysis option. Also facilitate the integration of these super challenge, to population level information. I mean, we do have a lot of detail about specific like whole genome sequences of pathogens. We also have information about animal genomics, but how do you integrate that with population level data? The development of new algorithms. I mean, we are using the machine learning traditional algorithms that we are, all familiar with, but, some of these deep learning approaches can be better adapted to animal health. We are still not adapting them enough. Also train the next generation of these bilingual, like I always call it Nokia people that know about data science, but they also know about the subject matter problem. And not just veterinarians, but also, animal scientists, people working in public health, and, farmers, even in the area of animal management. We have to improve also the data quality, data collection standards, and data accessibility. We are vets, so when we submit grants to NIH, they say, well, but we don't fund vets usually, because you guys should be funded by USDA. But we are in a very interesting limbo sometimes, because we do have a lot of animal health records that could be, health information that sometimes is zoonotic agents, and it could be actually having a lot of repercussions for public health. But we are also in the world of agriculture and economics. So we do have these areas of, this is agriculture, so it could be USDA, it could be also NIH, could be also NSF, actually, because we are doing, all this computer science and stuff is NSF. So it's funny, like we are kind of in a, very interdisciplinary world, but we have less standards than the human counterparts. We don't have data like collection in the same ways that hospitals do, and veterinary clinics are different and they don't have so many standards for good and for bad, I would say. But the advantage of that is that we can develop things faster in terms of AI. We don't need so much certification for some of those models and compared to human health, but the challenge is to standardize the data and have similar case definitions. User-friendly visualization, if it's not user-friendly, our population, field veterinarians, farmers, they have the attention span of a wasp, usually. So it's like just 1 minute, give me what I want, what I need, I will use it and apply it. If it's more than 2 minutes, I lose my attention. I don't have the time. They're very busy. It's exactly the same population I feel than doctors in a clinic setting, right? You have to really be aware of that. So they're not data scientists. They're not going to sit there in a platform that they have to create their own dashboard for more than 5 minutes. It's not going to happen. You have to give them all that already pre-processed and easy to understand. And of course, real-time analytics. So if it's not happening today, is already old, I cannot use it for decision-making of what I'm going to do in the farm. And define, what we want to get ultimately is into the efficient support system. So give me, what all this data means for my purposes. Really give me some interpretation that can be useful for me. I mean, I see a lot of fancy graphs, but what that means, really, we need to get there. Okay, so what is our work on all this really interesting but challenging area? So we definitely, first thing, we ask our potential end users, and we had really interesting conversation. This was done under a National Science Foundation new program that was called Convergence Accelerator, and we were the only ones in the agricultural world, working with other 6 teams nationally in AI applied to different areas. So we started understanding our audience, and we realized that we have actually very different audiences. We work with, production managers, could be this guy here. We also work with field veterinarians, which are different population than diagnostic veterinarians or pathologists, or, even people working in the industry, like, for example, Beringer, or in the pharma companies that develop vaccines or do consultant work for farms. So again, really different users have different needs and they need the data in a different way. But the main complaint was that they actually generate a lot of data, but that data is not processed, it's not even analyzed. So they don't even see the value of collecting and investing all that much work. They also have all the data scattered and difficult to access. Some is coming through the diagnostic labs, some is coming from the management software that they have in the farm. They have also the feed delivery trucks, and they have the feed software that's providing information. So it's all scattered. It's not easy to put it together. And we also need to shift again from very reactive. It's like, what's going on here? Okay, I don't know, but let's treat it, figure it out if it's super resistant bug or not, and then based on that we will adapt our management. But it's very reactive. It's not looking at prediction of what's going to happen and do prevention rather than control. So our mission was try to solve a little bit of that, empowering veterinarians and farmers through advanced data-driven analytics and customized dashboards that can proactively manage better animal health and more timely specifically. So this was the aim that, again, we have to put, again, this Convergence Accelerator program was very interesting. It was very entrepreneurial, even if we don't want to go into the startup company, some of us, but we definitely have to, come up with those things. And we had this team of hybrid people between academia, industry, diagnostic labs, and veterinary clinics. We have, for example, Pipestone is the largest veterinary clinic in the US. We have PIC is the largest genetic company in the world. We have Seaboard Farms, Tosh, and Amazon Web Services working with us to improve the lakes and the way we handle this massive amount of data. We had a huge industry collaborators. And we also have key components in academia for the different pieces, the computer science, the advanced analytics, and data visualization. That itself is really a world. And the user experience that I don't even also knew that exist till we got into this project. So all these things, we put it together again, and we enhance our, this is BioPortal, which is a platform we've been working in the last 5-6 years to improve animal health management, but bringing this into the next level with, machine learning prediction models. So how this work? Well, so the BioPortal, the way it is today, we have to change the website because it's a little bit, 70s style website, but we like it kind of. So it's the integration of multiple data sources with, more real-time fashion. So it's APIs. We build APIs with different diagnostic labs. As soon as we have a diagnostic lab in the lab, it's going into the database. We also still have manual uploads because some of the things are just spreadsheets that the producer sent to us, but we're trying to accelerate that process. And we have all these bunch of data streams, right? Diagnostics, treatment information, are they using this particular antibiotics today or these particular drugs, vaccination strategies, biosecurity measures, production indices, trade information, how the pigs move. We're now starting to move into tracking how the trucks that move in and out of the farm, what are the routes that those trucks are doing and so on. So all this information gets into the system. We integrate, massage, and put into personalized dashboards for each of the farmers. So it's a very personalized, again, oriented to just resolve the problem that they have. But again, one producer may have, 300, 400 farms to manage. So it's quite a big audience. So again, with this, we do prediction and early detection of outbreaks. We work a lot in the area of antimicrobial resistance now to better inform antimicrobial stewardship in the veterinary field. So you have these bugs that are getting really bad in this farm, just make sure that you don't move the animals from here to these other places that don't have that resistance. So don't mix the flows. And of course, also contact tracing, outbreak investigations, and disease pre-modeling. So how we do this, again, we have these, we call it the Precision Epidemiology Consortium. We can find a better way to define this, but the whole idea is we start with the pain points. So what's the thing that, you have at night that doesn't allow you to sleep? And that's the question that we ask farmers, producers in general, like managers of the health system, the herd, also diagnostic labs. And based on that, we start doing some research about, okay, how we can address this better. How, diagnostic lab that today is the largest diagnostic lab in the country in terms of managing diagnostics for the swine industry or other industries. How these guys that, take usually 2 weeks to produce, the processing, the pipelines and so on of the whole genome sequences of these bacteria, how instead of 2 weeks, we can do it in 5 minutes. And the rest of the time can be used to interact with the client, to better manage the problem itself and, discuss about solutions, things like that. So that's what we try to do. And once we get there, we get, the best methods, and they are tested, they're proven to be valid and good. Then we integrate it into the BioPortal. So we develop the actual components or dashboards for that. So again, it's a pipeline that starts with, raw Python scripts and ends into, a production phase and that goes into the platform. Okay, so how we do this and what kind of things we do is basically real-time metrics of interest. We compute trend and pattern recognition. This is, again, it's very basic visualization and analytics, but it's something not existing today. So if a veterinarian today in a large clinic like PAPS and others want to do this, they have to do it in Excel. It takes maybe 1 or 2 weeks to do it. And at that time, definitely the outbreak is gone. And, it's probably good because they realize, oh, this happened this way and so on, but they can actually not prevent or, the actual ongoing event. And so we try to accelerate that process. For our investigations, as we talk about early detection of diseases, so not just looking at what's happening today and why we got the outbreak here, but can we predict and make sure that this is not happening again, or what are the risk areas that could have these events happening more frequently. Risk assessment, so working a lot to identify again, those that we need to implement interventions before it happens, and the data and model sharing, critical to accelerate communication across the stakeholders, which today, again, usually is like phone calls or a fax from the lab. We try to, accelerate that process, make sure that people can share both data, but also the models that we develop in a faster path. Again, the whole idea is try to help the industry to meet the goals that they want to meet. Okay, so this is BioPortal again, current features, just to show you very quick. Not sure if the videos will work in this lab, in this computer, but basically what we have is a more optimized data connection and integration, and still we're working on this because each production system is a different world and we have different data schemas and so on. But this is already automatized. We have a lot of APIs working and functioning well. So this is really a big step. And it took probably 80% of the effort of the whole problem. And then visualization analytical tools, once the data is here, it's relatively easy, right? Like just to generate the best tools or the best components that, the veterinarians and producers want to see. So this is one example. This is one dashboard that has what we call 7 different components or tools. It could be a table, it could be a map, it could be a graph, it could be a heat map, it could be, a graph, a network graph to visualize how farms move between each other. Here, for example. So, we have the phylogenetic tools, also the gene-specific sequencing, for example, for pairs, like is here, or the whole genome sequencing pipelines. So again, they use this, basically, they can generate the dashboard like this in minutes. So we have diagnostic dashboards, which are extremely popular and are being used a lot by the industry and our beta users. The histopath data reports that we are getting in the world of, Chat GPT, small version for histopath reports, which, as you know, any vet can write anything there, like open text and, really interesting world to dig in. So we're trying to extract minimum information from that and try to identify trends, even help to diagnose new problems based on information we got in the past. Diagnostic and trait analysis, diagnostics plus production data. So we're trying to integrate all those things to help better detect problems in an early fashion. And also all the phylogenetic tools, which is one of the most demanded parts. Because again, this industry, specifically swine industry, is generating a lot of sequences. And just to give you an idea, again, one farm can have maybe 2,000 sequences per month of one particular agent, PERS, for example. So everything that gets positive gets sequenced. It's just probably one gene sequence. They don't do much whole genome yet, but it's a lot of data already. Again, comparatively, France, the whole country, maybe have 70 sequences in the last 10 years. I mean, just to give you an idea, the difference of swine industries. And, so the swine industry in the US is very pro genomics, let's say. So we have this valuable information can be used for example, phylogeography. We're using it a lot to identify how, what's the most likely ancestor of my sequence in this farm, how that is spread across systems. So basically the way it works, each producer, each vet has their own account. They log into the system, they access their databases, and they select what data they want to use to and what farms they want to play with or look at. And they start generating these dashboards. So basically select the database, visualize and analyze, and you may generate one dashboard that you like it very much and you want to duplicate that for another agent. It takes 1 second to do that as well. And you're going to store those dashboards and generate reports to share with your veterinarian or with the diagnostic lab if you want to. So this is one example, again, the space-time genomic visualization is very popular. These 3 components can be linked together as here, for example, if they're all blue, that means that every time I touch something here, it changes the other graphs in the other components. So you can look, at the specific strains of viruses and look, okay, where, which farms are these coming from, how they are related. And, for example, look at, do we have movements between these 2 farms 2 weeks before that got introduced, so I can try to identify the source. So we have a lot of flexibility on selecting those components. And also one of the things that they requested is like, can we have, I probably don't want that you do the dashboards for me, but kind of I like that also, right? So can we provide dashboard templates so they can, quickly select which farm, when, like the time frame, and then come up with the dashboard very quickly without them having to generate it, because again, they are not data scientists. We also have a bunch of tools in terms of data management. So they own the data. They have the data governance in their hands. So they can select, today I want this guy, which is my neighbor, and got broke with a very bad purse strain. I want to share the information with him. So they can do it in real time. They can also share with the state vets if they want, diagnostic labs. So they have that possibility to share data sources, to share alignments, to share other information like next strain that you probably know. We have the next strain integrated in BioPortal, so you can visualize, generate next strain dashboards. And these can be done automatically. So every time the API push a new sequence into your database, the same agent and so on, automatically is going to run the sequence alignment with the new strains on it, adding those new strains, and you will have an updated dashboards without even having to do anything. So this is one example. I'm not sure again if this will work here. Oh yeah, it may work. Okay, so one example is just recording on my desktop kind of a few days ago, but one example of some of the health status charts is still improving the visualization. It's not the most beautiful heat map that we can generate, but particularly the colors, I just hate the red and I'm green colors, but anyway, so you can look very quickly at it and saying, oh, some of the farms, we have a lot of information. If you have a blank, means that you don't have diagnostic data. But if you have either positive, negative, or unknown, that means you do have a diagnostic test that is either, negative or positive. So you can look at the status of the farm in addition of the status of the health individual that you tested at one time, and link that also with other farms that, you had movements, like this is a graph of the animal farms, the animal movement, between farms. So you can link that in terms of our investigation. It's very useful because you can look at, one particular farm that broke today and say, okay, how many animals we got in this farm, from where, and what was the status of all those other farms that were the source. And just tell me, again, if maybe those were potentially the culprits, basically, or the ones to blame, based on the information that we have. Of course, animal movement is a big contributor of disease introduction. It's not the only one. So we also need to incorporate an airborne transmission from nearby farms. You can do that also with the spatial explicit tools. So again, looking at the different things, how the different farms were in terms of PRRS status, for example, in relation to the farm that we're interested to evaluate. So again, very useful if we want to do any kind of outbreak investigation, or even identify other farms I have to look at because my farm was sending pigs to the other ones after the outbreak happened. And we also link that with production data. Production data is a whole world. We have more than 300 variables per farm, and just to give you an idea about how many piglets the sow had in this in this week, or weekly data, daily wake, individual animal information. So we can link all that with the specific events, the PRRS or other events, and see if those events actually change the index. So it can help both ways. The production can tell me, oh, actually something was going on before even I had a diagnosis. Look how we went in terms of, for example, increase of mummified piglets, for example, 3 weeks before we got the outbreak diagnosed, or the other way around. We had the event and then we realized that the production just went down for months till we recover back to normal phase. Thank you. Okay, so again, a lot of tools and AMR tools, phenotypic information, MIC is very commonly used. So we use this a lot, resistant, susceptible intermediate resistant based on the lab information, for multiple antibiotics. Genotypic information also now with next generation sequencing, extract resistant genes and virulence factors and map those. I'm not going to go into the pipelines that we use. Basically, we can generate these trees based on the whole genomes and come up with these donut charts, which is basically the resistome of that farm. So it can tell you, oh, better don't use this and this and this antibiotic in this farm because you have a lot of resistance in practical sense. So I bring this other video. I think we already kind of talk about it. Just again, logging into the platform, look at, the dashboard, one particular sequence they want to focus and identify, okay, let's show the farm that is, having that particular sequence. You can go into the metadata for that if you want more detail. And then you can jump and look at, space and time. This is antimicrobial resistance MICs. Look at, the MIC evolution over time per farm, and how, have farms that, for example, had a lot of resistance, over time. This is for S. suis, but could be for Salmonella, E. coli, whatever you want. Look at the flows. That's what I'm telling you. Probably you don't want to mix farm 16 with farm 12 because they had completely different profile of resistance. And coming back with, this is the resistome. So you can link the tree with the donut chart. Okay, so I bring you some examples. You have it in the presentation, and this is what we are getting this year. So we already have tested machine learning models and topic models, anomaly detection algorithms, more than 24 to identify the best ones for our data. And now we're putting this into the model. So again, some examples, these are papers, so you can read them, they're boring. So it's basically, again, machine learning for classification problems, for prediction problems. And we get really good prediction of AMR, for example, trends. And we also got, again, some of the best anomaly detection algorithms among 24 methods that we were testing specifically for outbreak detections. And this is one example of one of the spread models that we are integrating. This is one example of ASF, potential disease transmission in Iowa. So it's an agent-based model that uses cells instead of farms, because still we're with the issue of scalability. So we're using cells to be able to scale up for the whole US. But the cells can be, really different in size. And I just want to conclude with one of the main things that we usually forget, but is training the next generation leaders in this area, which is, you guys and, the next ones after you, which is critical because we don't have a lot of training on these. Veterinarians are clinicians, 99% of the people. So they don't really like computers. And that's really a big challenge. And there is really a small fraction that is different to that. So we are trying to change that a little bit and move them into the world of AI, which is not usually very attractive to them. But we are trying to get there. And basically, take home message is that we are moving in a very exciting time. I feel there's a lot of change in mentality. People now is more willing to share data, and they realize that sharing data is great actually for their economy in terms of the health management. So they are really able to share and use that data better. And now we have the blockchain, which is going to change the way we trace diseases as well. And in the food industry, we have precision farming increasing, particularly adoption in the livestock industry. And we have big real checks in real life, like pandemics, like African swine fever and so on, is accelerating all this a lot. But still, there is a lot of work to do to make this possible, particularly standardizing the data, just that. I mean, being able to say this data together with this data, yes, we can put it together because they have similarities, case definitions, and so on. So I think we are very excited, but we need to push still more towards a better together approach. Epidemiologists are those species are weird, and the lab people don't talk to the epi people sometimes. They don't talk to the field that often either. So we really need to work more together in that sense. And it's definitely a multidisciplinary world. So biologists, ecologists, social scientists, extremely important to work, as we all understand after COVID. And just want to thank a huge amount of people that's making this possible. Really fun work to do, really fun collaborations with the industry, with government, and also, of course, with all the team. This is a consortium we met last year, and my specific team, the really talented students that we have in the lab. This is just a fraction, but it really fun to work with them. Next generations, I think they're super smart, definitely more tech savvy than I am. And this is also thank you to you. It was a beautiful morning. I had a tea in this cup, which is awesome. I love it. So I definitely like it and really appreciate the invitation for today.